Also sitting next to him, author and agricultural economist at the Agricultural Business Chamber. Our markets today covered by Chris Jewett, portfolio manager at 91. A lot of nervousness around the rand ahead of the US Fed releasing interest rates later this evening. We'll find out what that means for the local currency. Then Momentum releasing some results, a 41% jump in their headline earnings, are doing quite well. Their profits hitting 6 billion rand. We'll be talking to Janet Murray, Momentum Group CEO. Later on the show, we'll have Graham Cordrington, futurist and partner at Tomorrow Today, in our Business Unusual feature, talking about universities giving the green light to AI in academic assignments. All that and more on The Money Show. But before all that, your eyewitness news with Mongezi Koko.
Thanks, Moteo. Good evening. Police say the AK-47 rifle used to murder DJ Somebody has been positively linked to 18 cases. Now, the same gun was also used in the attempted hit on taxi boss Joe Sibanyoni, which alleged criminal boss Vusmuzi Kat Matlala is charged for. Matlala was denied bail today in the Alexandra Magistrates Court. He faced attempted murder charges for the hit on his socialite girlfriend Tebogo Tobajane and DJ Vinties. Khomotso Modise has more.
A month ago, police linked a single AK-47 rifle to the murders of DJ Somebody, DJ Vintos, vereniging engineer Armand Swart, and a man named Don Tindleni. Alleged crime boss Katiso KT Molefe has been charged for all those murders. But today, police have revealed that the gun and 2 others have also been linked to the attempted hit on taxi boss Joe Sibanyoni, which another alleged kingpin, Vusmuzi Kat Matlala, has been charged for. Spokesperson Athlenda Mate.
I'd previously indicated that we were linking those 3 firearms with 10. The cases have now risen to 18. These include murder, attempted murder, and other serious crimes. So we are now sitting at 18 cases.
Today, Matlala was denied bail in the Alexandra Magistrates Court, and his matter has been postponed to October. Khomotso Modise, Eyewitness News in Alexandra.
The man accused of setting fire to the Usindiso building in Johannesburg CBD says he's mentally drained and lacks the strength to continue with court proceedings. Today's Thembiso Mdlalosi stormed out of the courtroom while being questioned about contradictions in his testimony. Now, the 32-year-old is on trial at the Palm Ridge Magistrates Court, facing 76 charges, including murder, attempted murder, and arson. His alleged role in starting the fire emerged after he confessed to the crime, which he now claims was false. Alpha Ramoshwana was in court.
Last year, Thembiso Mdlalose confessed that he set fire to the Usindiso building after pouring petrol on the body of a man he killed. Last week, he told the court that this was a lie, claiming he made it up to get arrested so that he can be provided shelter in prison. During his cross-examination today, Mdlalose changed his story again, saying some details in his testimony from last week were false. After storming out of the courtroom and into the holding cells, his lawyer, Leonard Trini, says his client is mentally exhausted.
My Lord, I've spoken to Mr. Mdlalose. He indicated, my Lord, that today is actually mentally drained. He does not want to proceed today. He asked if this matter can kindly be postponed to another day for him to continue with his testimony.
Mdlalose will return to court next month. Alpha Ramshwana, Eyewitness News in Palm Ridge.
Let's turn to this now. While frustrated residents west of Joburg have been promised full restoration of water access by tomorrow, the city's water utility says its main systems remain heavily constrained. The areas most affected by the strain include Westbury, Coronationville and Westdean, among others. Last Thursday, Mayor Dada Morero promised residents that taps would be flowing again in 7 days after months of interruptions. Jabuli Lembata has more.
Joburg Water says reservoirs supplied by its main water system are still either critically low or rising slowly. This comes after the utility closed off supply in other areas to build up the levels. However, residents say the intervention is futile. Westbury resident Bianca Oliver says the water tankers deployed to the area are not enough.
They are still sending I think we saw one water truck now. Joburg Water did have a meeting with the council concerning affected areas.
Morero will appear before Parliament on Friday to explain his plans for the city's water crisis. Jabuli Limbata, Eyewitness News.
Parliament's Public Works Committee has resolved to report Minister Dean McPherson to the National Assembly Speaker over what it says is continued absence at meetings set to discuss a forensic report into the George building collapse, in which more than 30 people died. Last year's building collapse in George turned into a political hot potato in Parliament today as months of tensions boiled over when the committee refused to accept an apology letter from McPherson, who is attending party political work, saying he had missed too many meetings and his excuses did not suffice. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
Relations between Minister Dean McPherson and Parliament's Portfolio Committee have been frosty from the onset of this administration. In his latest letter to the committee, McPherson said he would complain to the House chairperson because previous requests for Wednesday meetings to be moved because they clash with cabinet commitments had been ignored. But the EFF's Sharon Letlape said the committee was tired of the excuses and McPherson's absences.
It's not an apology, it's disrespect, it's a middle finger towards this committee and towards this item.
Action SA's Malebo Kobe agreed.
Every single time the minister must come and account here, he's too busy. But he will fill a room with journalists and tell them the work he's supposed to tell us.
MPs later turned the matter into a political one, questioning why a DA minister was snubbing a meeting that involved a DA-run municipality. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
And Stats SA says beef prices continue to stand out with steep annual increases following a bitter bout of foot and mouth disease. The agency released the latest inflation print today. Annual consumer price inflation eased to 3.3% in August from 3.5% in July. While the expected drop is thanks to softer food and fuel inflation, some categories in the basket are still alarming. Stats SA says SAMP rose sharply by more than 14% in August of 2025 compared to a year prior, while maize meal rose by more than 8%. The foot and mouth disease outbreak in the country earlier this year also disrupted the supply chain and impacted red meat availability. Chief Director for Price Statistics at Stats SA, Patrick Kelly.
Beef mince is up 27.2% compared with a year ago. Stewing beef is higher by 32.3% and beef steak costs 28.6% more. That said, the monthly changes in August were far smaller, the lowest since April. This slowdown comes after factory gate prices for beef carcasses fell almost 8% in July.
Gold is trading at $3,677.31 an ounce. The rand is at 17.37 to the dollar, 23.70 to the pound, 20.59 to the euro. Brent oil is at $68.38 a barrel.
In your sport, Mamelodi Sundowns look to return to the summit of the Betway Premiership as questions swirl around Nasruddin Nabi's future at Kaizer Chiefs. Jose Mourinho tipped to return to Benfica, and Tom Brady announces his return to competitive football.
A fine Thursday in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Johannesburg drops to overnight lows of 10 degrees, peaking at highs of 28. Pretoria 9 and 27. Vereniging 4 also reaching highs of 27. Cape Town is partly cloudy, becoming clear with a gentle southeasterly breeze at a low of 11 and a high of 19. The top story in EWN this hour, police say the AK-47 rifle used to murder DJ Sambodi has been positively linked to 18 cases.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. EWN Traffic.
Well, at this hour, if you're leaving Brakpan heading towards Boksburg, roadworks are causing about a 20-minute delay. This is on the N17 eastbound, N17 westbound. Between Carnival City and Rondebold Road. Also in the Boksburg area, that's leaving Germiston heading towards Benoni. There's bumper traffic on the N12 eastbound between the R24 split and Craft Road. While if you're heading towards Bedfordview, traffic remains sluggish. R24 westbound, that's between Edenvale Road and the Gilulis interchange. There's also slow-moving traffic still driving through Parktown, Joburg CBD on the M1 South. Between Killarney Benz and the Crown Interchange, while in Roodepoort, traffic is sluggish on Randfontein Road. That's heading into Leratong, Randfontein Road between Colet and Adcock in the mother city. There's an accident scene causing heavy delays N2 inbound approaching Baden-Powell Drive, and there's also bumper-to-bumper traffic. This is on the N1 inbound approaching the M5 southbound Coburg interchange. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show with Moteo Haripe.
On 702. Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud host of the Macro and Risks Management Conference 2025. ABSA is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply. Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday edition of The Money Show. My name is Moteo Haripe. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you want to join our conversations, any of them that we have tonight, you can WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702. Now, some good news coming out today. Annual inflation for food and non-alcoholic beverages went down to 5.2% in August from 5.7% in July. I know many of you will say we're not feeling it when it comes to our budgets for groceries. Now, several food categories recorded lower rates, including dairy products and eggs, fruits and nuts, and vegetables and fish. One of those positive proteins also coming in lower. So your grocery budget will see a welcome change in terms of some essential items, but not meat. Meat is still quite high. You'll be going to less price this summer, essentially. Not many invites. Steak is up more than 28% per kilo. Or you might get some affordable options like ostrich steaks, but I'm not sure if that's a favorite for everyone around the price. So we'll be talking about that inflation number and also what that inflation number means for the South African Reserve Bank announcing interest rates tomorrow. So what to expect from the MPC? Albert Botha, the head of fixed income at Ashburton Investments, joins us for that conversation. Also joining us is Mpho Mlopiane, the chief economist at Alex Forbes Investments, talking there about interest rates. Then we talk more food, about securing Africa's food future through innovation and investments, and a bit of a panel there as well. Wandile Sihlobo, the author and agricultural economist at Agricultural Business Chamber, are joining us for that conversation. We've all seen the price of gold going up. Gold prices are skyrocketing more than 40% in 2025, surpassing the $3,600 mark. We'll be talking about what that means for things like Krugerrands and whether you should be investing. Rel Dembi, CEO of the South African Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop, are joining us for that conversation. Later on the show, we have Business Unusual, talking universities giving the green light to artificial intelligence in terms of academic assignments. Graham Cordrington, a futurist and partner at Tomorrow Today, are joining us for that conversation. Now, when you purchase your car, it's often an emotional time, a lot of happiness going around, standing in front of your car with the big red ribbon. But everything that happens on the day and more is actually charged through on-the-road fees. Now, consumer ninja Wendy Nola will be telling us about those on-the-road fees and how you can negotiate them lower. Later, our shapeshifter, Aubrey Tau, founder of Mojalav and Tau Foods, will join us as our shapeshifter tonight. All that and more on The Money Show. Let's talk money.
The Money Show with Moteo Haripe.
On 702.
702.
Let's then go to gold. It's been quite a safe haven this year, right? The introduction of those higher U.S. tariffs. We've seen a lot of geopolitical tensions, a lot of nervousness and cautiousness by traders on the markets, and that's led to the precious metals like gold seeing a skyrocket, more than 40%. Gold has gone up by this year to $3,600 an ounce. So quite a big number there. And if you've been invested, you'll be smiling all the way to the bank. If you still want to be invested, listen to this particular conversation. Rel Dembi, the CEO of the South African Gold and Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop, joining us for this particular conversation. not a lot of people looking at Krugerrands these days. There were big advertisements around them back in the day, but gold is now back and it's hot and it's looking like an investment that will bring a lot of returns.
Good evening, Mateo. Thanks for having me. As gold bugs, we've always been there, and we would like to say we told you so. But the reality is, gold has its ups and downs. But a Krugerrand first launched in 1967 was 27 rand. Today it's trading at 69,000 rand. So from a rand hedge point of view, it is priced in US dollars. So when the dollar strengthens and the rand weakens, we get a bit of a bump. But on the other hand, the gold price is doing what it's doing because the world is taking notice. And there's big banks, there's big governments, institutions are piling up and piling into gold as we speak.
Now, Rael, when we look at gold as an investment and other precious metals, it's often cyclical, right? We've seen the price of gold go down a few years, but if you hold things like gold coins, the Krugerrand, and hold them and wait for those cycles to come, you can still getting on the earnings.
I mean, absolutely, as time tells, holding gold as a safe haven, you wouldn't call it a traditional investment. You wouldn't. It's almost like the insurance policy against your other investments. So the reality is holding 10-15% of your entire portfolio in gold. It's proving to be the case now, where stocks and bonds and shares and property are slowly going down the other way, and there's a lot of tension in the world. Markets are a bit shaky. This new announcement tonight, all of these little scares and sort of worries are the complete opposite to gold. It usually goes the other way. It should give you comfort. It should give you warmth. It should give you that liquidity. And holding gold, holding Krugerrands with you or in storage, as long as they're safe, I think it's definitely something that everybody should have a little piece of.
Now, I'm on the Scoin website, the Scoin Shop website, and I'm looking at a 1 ounce proof South African Krugerrand gold coin going for 99,000. Have you had a lot of people walk through your doors these past few months as the price of gold has surged?
Absolutely. We're fortunate enough to be in that position. A proof Krugerrand is slightly different. It's a collectible. There's only a certain amount of them minted each year. It's got a nice shiny finish to it. And it has some collectible benefits as well as some capital gains benefits versus a regular Krugerrand. Some would buy maybe half proof, half Krugerrand bullion. Some might like silver. Some might like some really old antique ZAR coin from 130 years ago. Someone might like a brand new coin from a fancy mint like the Paris Mint or the British Royal Mint. So it depends on taste. It depends on maybe heritage, something you believe in. It really depends. And we like to make this fun and exciting and warm and friendly. Gold shouldn't be scary. Gold shouldn't be something you shouldn't be able to get into. And now is still a great time because the world isn't as stable as we all hope it is.
And as it used to be. And how does somebody get their money back? Because I'm sure that's always a question when you invest your money. What returns do you get through a Krugerrand? Do you have to sell it to someone else, or how do they get it back?
So Krugerrands are extremely liquid. It's yours. You can take it home with you. There's gold dealers. There's coin dealers. We have been around for 50 years, so we like it. If you buy from us, you can come and sell it back to us. The Krugerrand is the most popular coin in the world and the first ever coin for the masses. So buying and selling should be easy and fun, and that's how we do it.
All right, that was Arel Dembi, CEO of the South African Gold Coin Exchange and the Coin Shop, talking about the rise in the price of gold and how you can invest in things like Krugerrands.
The Money Show will give you all the tools you need to navigate the complicated world of economics and commerce, even if you're not a numbers person. The Money Show
with Motheo Khwaripe,
6 to 8 p.m. Making money make sense
on 702 and Cape Talk.
Now, Africa as a continent is not food secure, hit by things like conflict and instability, climate change of late, environmental factors as well, inadequate infrastructure and other economic factors like funding. But how can we make sure that the continent has better food systems, making them more sustainable and making sure that we're food secure? Joining me for this conversation is Wandile Sihlobo, author and agricultural economist at Agricultural Business Chamber. Now, Wandile, when we are going through the shopping aisles, getting our veggies and our groceries, we never really think it could run out. But with just the issues we're having around water, the environment, people being displaced on the continent, that's a very, very big reality for millions on the African continent.
Indeed, Matteo, and I think it's important we separate South Africa from the rest of the continent or sub-Saharan Africa region. And I know many people don't like this, but it is true in agriculture in a sense that when you look at the output and productivity in sub-Saharan Africa region, South Africa stand alone as an exception on that. But I'm separating it because you have to ask a question of what is it then that has made South Africa to be a net exporter, gaining close to $14 billion on export of food products, which is half of what we produce, while the rest of the continent spend around $80 billion on imports. And that hinges on a couple of things, but I think the core of it, it's around the land governance, it's around the better public infrastructure, it is around the embrace of large or medium-scale farmers, and of course, many of the infrastructural things that you have said. But I would say at the top, it's also just the policy aspect of embracing science, better seed cultivars and genetics. And I think it is in this context where we have to focus on all of these hindrances, where we can begin to think about how do we strengthen food systems, and perhaps how do we even begin to be at a journey where we can produce for the world market. But so far, really, I would say the policy and the politics are what, to a certain extent, constrain the growth of Africa's food and agricultural sector.
We often have these highbrow conversations when it comes to food systems and innovation around agriculture, as we are now. But are these technologies, these innovations, these policies getting to the subsistence farmers on the African continent, those that have small holds and they, growing their own food? How are we making sure that those systems in those communities, bear fruit for them when it comes to making sure that they're food secure as a community, but also as a greater continent?
Look, I'm partially an academic, which allows me a space to be frank on these things. My sense is that this is not only just on a high-level conversation and all of that. The core thing is that if many African governments had a clear intent that they want to increase their agricultural output, the one thing they could start on is saying, what are these seed cultivars that South Africa is using that they don't have? And then they open up the legislation for that, because it's not the issue of availability or no availability, it's that the regulations block certain cultivars in a number of countries, with the exception of here. And once they do that and the ideologies stay on the side and we focus on embracing science, you will now put the farmers in Zimbabwe, in Malawi, in Tanzania on the same scale where they can compete with the South African farmers. The second aspect then, you would have to deal with the issue of land governance. I know it takes time, but it's fundamental because, again, with the exception of South Africa, much of the region, about 90% or so of rural land is still pretty much informal. You cannot think about the capital flowing in this. And I think if we want to seriously boost Africa's food production, we have to get to a sync of saying we will move from being smallholder to being medium scale and being large scale farming sector. Not that we are embracing industrial at the expense of others, but I think you need all typologies of farmers. But I think the romanticization of smallholders is not helping anyone when it comes to food output in the continent.
Well, that was Wandile Sihlobo, author and agricultural economist at Agricultural Business Chamber, talking about some of the solutions that are needed to make sure Africa's food systems become more sustainable ahead of the G20. The B20 South Africa Sustainable Food Systems and Agricultural Task Force are putting forward their recommendations for this particular topic. Things like enhancing labor and capital productivity, ensuring climate resilience and improving livelihoods, and more importantly, accelerating trade and making sure that there is adequate funding for all.
The Money Show.
The markets.
Few hours away from the US Fed rate decision coming out later this evening, just a little after the Money Show. In fact, the Dow Jones Industrial still positive ahead of that number. S&P 500 weaker, while the Dow Jones added 300 points rather, while the Nasdaq, which trades mostly tech shares, was down 0.5%. Let's get into those markets and look at what is the situation that is likely to play out. Chris Stewart, portfolio manager at 91, joins us for that conversation. Chris, are you seeing the pressure from the White House and President Donald Trump finally telling for the US Fed in terms of cutting those interest rates?
Yeah, good evening, Matteo. I think, the likelihood is we're going to see a 25 basis point rate cut out of the Fed. And I think there's been enough softening in the labor data to justify that. Some market commentators expecting to see a bigger rate cut than that. There's probably a 10% chance of a 50 basis point rate cut priced in. I think that's highly unlikely. And ironically, I think the pressure that the President of the United States and his regime have put on the Federal Reserve, and obviously the Federal Reserve will be very keen to emphasize their independence. I think the pressure that's put to bear has in fact raised the bar for a 50 basis point rate cut. I think things would have to be substantially worse than they might otherwise be, because I think the Fed is going to be, erring in the direction of proving they're independent. Nonetheless, I think 25 basis points is on the table, but I don't think we'll see more than that. That's probably what's priced into the market. I think that's the right outcome. I think 50 basis points would actually probably put the fear of God into the market anyway, because people would be worrying, well, how bad is it going to get? So we see 25 basis points out of the Fed, and I guess that raises the more interesting question. And, you've just been talking about food, and we've just had a pretty good inflation print in South Africa today, with inflation coming in lower than anticipated, largely on the back of the food category, with food price inflation coming in quite materially lower than expected. I think it makes tomorrow's meeting from our own monetary authorities a live meeting. It's for the first time in a while we're actually debating which way is it going to go. It's been a fairly clear decision, I think, for the last number of MPCs. I have the unenviable privilege of being on the radio on a Wednesday night, so you've always got to opine on what you think the decision is going to be on Thursday. So I'll go out on a limb and I'll say we probably are, and I know this is not a consensus view, but I suspect we may well see a 25 basis point rate cut tomorrow, notwithstanding the fact that we saw reasonably robust retail sales data today. And I think the retail sales data today may be a little bit of a function of a base of a very weak month in the same prior year, rather than any particular signs that consumer spending is robust, or that the consumer in South Africa is any a fine degree of health.
Well, it doesn't get more frank than that. Chris Stewart, portfolio manager at 91, expecting a 25 basis point cut from the US Fed. But the conversation much more interesting when you think about the South African Reserve Bank and the Monetary Policy Committee and what decision they make. In the meantime, the rand steady, I think, around 17 Rand 35 against the US dollar. It hasn't weakened any further than that, at 20 Rand 54 cents against the euro and 23 Rand 70 cents against the British pound. But these interest rate cuts, quite interesting for us as consumers, are those who have larger purchases like homes and cars, and those that are trying to repay some of those debts. So we'll keep a keen eye on those numbers. Time now is 6:30. Your headlines with Mongezi Gogo.
Thanks, Motelo. Good evening. It's emerged that suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner for Crime Detection, Shadrack Sibiya, recommended the approval of a submission last year for the Political Killings Task Team to continue with its work into 2025. The revelation comes from KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi as he testifies before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry probing interference within crime intelligence in the country. Sibiya was suspended by National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola on Friday for allegedly undermining the work of the task team. Mkhwanazi says the task team has received approval for funding until 2026.
Deputy National Commissioner Lieutenant General Sibiya, he recommended continuing deployment of this team and the funding thereof, as well as the approval, recommendation for the approval of Lieutenant General Khumalo to be a project manager for this team for the period 2024 to 2025.
For live updates on the Commission, visit ewn.co.za or watch live proceedings on our YouTube channel. Meanwhile, in Parliament, Acting Police Minister Feroz Kachalia says he hasn't had a reason to replace any of suspended Minister Senzo Mchunu staff after taking over the ministry. But Kachalia says he is in the process of appointing Gareth Newham from the Institute for Security Studies to be his special advisor and to fill a key vacancy. Kachalia was responding to oral questions in the National Assembly as part of the Peace and Security Cluster today. Babalondenze reports.
Professor Feroz Kachalia was sworn in as the Minister of Police on the 1st of August this year. His appointment came after President Cyril Ramaphosa's decision to place Senzo Mchunu on special leave following allegations that he interfered with police operations. Responding to questions from members, Kachalia says he hasn't replaced any officials, even those who worked closely with Mchunu.
I have not replaced the existing staff in my office. They are all currently in position. And secondly, that I've only taken steps to appoint one special advisor because there was a vacancy in that position, and I'm entitled to do so in terms of the ministerial handbook.
Kachalia says he appointed Gareth Newham as his special advisor because he's one of the most prominent experts and policy analysts in safety and security. Babalo Ndanza, Eyewitness News.
Metal Workers Union NUMSA has secured an above-inflation multi-year agreement for workers at mining and metal company South 32 Hillside Aluminium. The 5-year wage agreement signed today took effect at the beginning of the month and will hold until August of 2023, or rather 2030. This follows 1-month-long amicable talks between the union and South 32. Ndogozo Khumalo has the details.
Wages for on-market technicians and artisans will increase by 6% for each year until 2028. For the 4th and 5th year, the wage increase will be 6% or CPI plus 0.5%, whichever is greater. Above-market artisans and operators will receive a 0.5% increase for each year of the first 3 years of the agreement. The final 2 years will be the same increase or CPI plus 0.5%, whichever is greater. NUMSA spokesperson Pagamile Hlubi Majola.
NUMSA wishes to thank its members, the negotiating team, union officials and shop stewards for their hard work in securing this agreement. Because of their efforts, NUMSA continues to improve the lives of workers and their families.
She says workers will also receive a once-off signing bonus of 20,000 rands. Ndogozo Khumalo, Eyewitness News.
And US President Donald Trump has today been welcomed by Britain's King Charles at Windsor Castle. A royal spectacle has featured around 120 horses and 1,300 members of the British military. Heir to the throne, Prince William and his wife Catherine warmly greeted Trump and First Lady Melania Trump after the Marine One helicopter touched down on the grounds of Windsor, before walking them to the waiting Charles and Queen Camilla. As the president shook hands with the king, a 41-gun salute was fired simultaneously from 6 World War I era guns as a similar display occurred at the Tower of London. The Trumps and the royals then enjoyed a carriage procession to nearly 1,000-year-old castle where Trump saluted as the US national anthem played. A fine Thursday in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows of between 4 and 10 degrees, peaking at highs of between 27 and 28. Cape Town is partly cloudy, becoming clear with a gentle southeasterly breeze at a low of 11 and a high of 19. The top story in EWN this hour, it's emerged that suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner for Crime Detection Shadrack Sibiya recommended the approval of a submission last year for the Political Killings Task Team to continue with its work into 2025.
EWN Traffic.
Leaving Brakpan heading towards Boksburg, we have those roadworks causing heavy delays on the N17 eastbound. That's between Carnival City and Rondebold Road. Also slow-moving traffic still. This is if you're heading towards El Dorado Park, Devland. Roadworks causing some delays on the Golden Highway between the N1 and Union Avenue. We still have bumper-to-bumper traffic. This is in the Roodepoort area traveling towards Kagiso on Randfontein Road between Miles Stoker and Adcock Street. There's also that accident scene in the Deep Sluit area, pedestrian knockdown N17 westbound. This is near the R511 Winnie Mandela Drive, still causing about an hour delay. While in the mother city, there's slow-moving traffic due to this. There's slow-moving traffic. This is due to an accident on the N1 inbound. This is approaching the M5 South Kuburg interchange. Also, bumper-to-bumper traffic on the N1 outbound between Foreshore and Belleville. If you come across any other traffic issues, please WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us, because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
10 years ago, Illuma Capital set out with one goal: to help people like you build a legacy for tomorrow. Through personalized strategies and unwavering dedication, we've been instrumental in helping our clients achieve their financial dreams, whether it's securing retirement, growing wealth, or planning for the unexpected. For a decade, we've been trusted to guide your financial journey with expertise and care. Visit illuma.co.za today. Illuma Capital is a licensed FSP. T's and C's apply.
Whenever you hear deep in the heart and art of jazz, think Sia Makuzeni with the big band, Jasmine Horn, Alun Wad, The Baylor Project, Jose James sings Badu, Umusangare, Esperanza Spalding, Michelle Dugiocello, Elaine, Tezo, Munei, Mondli Ngobo, and many other spectacular icons. Think Standard Bank Joy of Jazz Festival. 4 stages at the Sandton Convention Center, 26th, 27th, and 28th September. And take me there. Book via Ticketmaster.
EWN Sport.
And there's a lot of PSL action tonight. Talagele Mganga's got all the action that you need from the PSL. Shocker game, shocker result yesterday. What's in store today?
Well, Muteo, Mamelodi Sundowns will look to return to the summit of the Bedway Premiership this evening with a win over Marumo Gallants. That game is one of 4 scheduled, and ahead of it, Miguel Cardoso has discussed the recent signing of Katlego Ntsabeleng, who joined on loan from FC Dallas.
A midfielder with high rotation, offensive-minded midfielder. He can play in different positions in this team. He can be one of the double pivots. He can be a number 10. He can play on the pockets, so an inside, a winger playing inside, not on the lines for sure. So a player that can play in with a lot of versatility, mostly on the right, in the center, and lower. It's a player with a high intensity, but it's a player that we are developing.
As for Kaizer Chiefs, they've yet to comment on multiple reports that they've parted ways with coach Nasruddin Nabi. SABC Sports says the decision comes amid uncertainty around his CAF qualifications, meaning he wouldn't be able to sit on the bench for any of their inter-club competition fixtures this season. While Idiski Times claims that Nabi is leaving to go back to Tunisia, that's to be with his wife following her car accident earlier in the campaign. Switching over to the UEFA Champions League, where Bayern Munich against Chelsea headlines the pick of the match day games tonight. The Blues are back in the tournament for the first time since the 2022-23 season, and Captain Reece James has reflected on the changes they've undergone since they last won the trophy in 2022.
It's obviously difficult, the club's had lots of change. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad thing. If you look at last season, we qualified for this competition and we, went on to achieve 2 trophies. So I'll definitely say, with all the change, we started probably slow, but last season, I think we come on leaps and bounds.
And Bongimo Nambi and Faf de Klerk have been called up to the Springbok squad ahead of the Rugby Championship games against Argentina. There's no place for Louis Diaga, Jean-Luc Dupré and Apelele Fassi, who are all out due to injury. The majority of the 33-man squad selected by Rassie Erasmus were involved in the 43-10 mauling of New Zealand, which was the All Blacks' biggest loss in Test history. Tolagile Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
When captains of industry gather to discover how AI and other exponential technologies can future-proof their organizations, they'll find out what matters most at the Stellenbosch Business Institute C-Leader Summit. Global thought leader Dr. Vivian Ming will challenge you on what it means to lead in an automated world by unlocking the full potential of human intelligence in the age of AI. Join her and other thought leaders by visiting sbinstitute.co.za to book your seat at the Stellenbosch Business Institute C-Leader Summit. It will be on the 2nd of October at the Forum in Bryanston. Stellenbosch Business Institute, beyond a business school.
What do partners of the Gates Foundation do when facing the world's toughest challenges? They keep going. From discovering a plastic drape that helps detect excessive postpartum bleeding faster, to developing better bed nets to kill malaria-carrying mosquitoes, to researching an RSV vaccine that could save hundreds of thousands of children. For every problem, there are people who prove that progress is possible. The Gates Foundation, partners of human potential. Learn more at gatesfoundation.org/keep going.
Small businesses are anything but small. They're the backbone of our communities, the dreamers, the doers, the ones who keep Mzansi moving forward. That's why 702 and Capitec Business Banking are putting them in the spotlight. Every Thursday between 6 and 8 p.m., catch Small Business Focus with Capitec, where we showcase the hustle, heart, and the secrets to thriving in today's economy. Your vision matters, and with Capitec, you're never building it alone. Small Business Focus with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Thursdays between 6 and 8 p.m. on 702. Capitec Bank is an authorized FSP 46669.
You're with Moteo Haripe on 702 and Cape Talk.
Welcome back to The Money Show. It's been quite a results-heavy week for the JSE. Some more numbers coming out of the local boss Momentum investments, putting out some good, solid numbers today. They had a very, very good year with headline earnings at 6.2 billion rand, a 41% jump on last year's high base. We talk now to Janet Marais, Momentum Group CEO, joining us to unpack some of these numbers. Janet, just looking at the South African consumer in all of your segments that you serve, what are you seeing? Is there more hunger to make sure that people are covered through pensions and annuities, or are you seeing a more strained South African consumer?
Hello, Matteo. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. Look, actually, I think there's two answers to what you are asking me. I think on the one hand, one of probably the only positive leftovers of COVID is that the consumer actually, through that crisis that, no one really planned for, maybe really felt the importance and started to realize the absolute importance of having a financial plan, of having life cover, of making sure that, in the event that life happens, they have the necessary cover in place. And I think that is still out there, that we see that almost in spite of people being under financial strain, the last thing that they would do is to cancel a life policy. So I think on that hand, definitely people experienced, almost that hardship in a way that now prevent them from canceling those. On the other hand, and those are some of the numbers that I mentioned today, in the last year, since the two-pot system has actually come about, we have seen 350,000 people coming to take money out of their pension funds. That was, in our case, 5.4 billion rand.
Wow.
That was actually withdrawn from pension funds. The worst number for me is that 19% of those people are older than 50. Now, if you think about the fact that a person like that is less than 10 years or maybe 10 years from retirement, but they are so desperate that they would actually come and make those withdrawals that they could probably never replace before they get to retirement, it actually shows you almost this tale that there are so many people under such bad financial distress, and we would hope that that money didn't go into kind of lifestyle choices or gambling or other things, but that people actually did use it to make their lives better. But then we also see that people do hold on to at least their life cover. And I think one of the best things, in South Africa is that people who are employed mostly also save towards their retirement through their pension funds.
Yeah.
And the fact that people don't have a choice there is probably, a really good thing in the long run.
Yeah, it also speaks to, the recent trend we've seen of unretirement, people working way past their retirement years because they just haven't saved up enough. But let's talk now about, those companies within Momentum that have, produced the good numbers. The Momentum Corporate, which offers, of course, annuities and pension savings, and then Momentum Investments as well, which saw normalized headline earnings up 15% at 963 million rand. So that's quite good a business over the reporting period. And also speaking to what you were talking about, that people just want to be covered.
Yeah, so, in fact, there's no time to talk about each one of the 9 businesses that we have in our diversified group. But I think what is amazing, for us in terms of, the uplift in our earnings this year was actually caused by the fact that we have 9 different businesses and business units in the group, and 8 of the 9 actually improved on their earnings from last year. And last year was already a record year for us. The only business where we didn't see the same is in Africa, but we're also busy, with quite a big restructuring in our African business. Now, that all adds up, and I think often you have a diversified business and you always hope that at least half your businesses will do well to cover for the other half that might have some difficulty. Where this year, like I say, 8 out of 9 businesses, our short-term business have done incredibly well. Metropolitan, has had, stellar earnings. And as you've mentioned, Momentum Investments, also Momentum Corporate. I think it is that combination of when a plan comes together, when all your businesses fire on all of their cylinders, that you can actually come up with the kind of results like what we've had this time.
You also invested in India, Momentum controlling around 44% of Aditya Birla Health Insurance. There are some movements there in terms of a possible initial public offering. What's in the war chest and what do you plan to see in the next year?
Yeah, so I do want to take the emphasis off the possible IPO a little bit and maybe just, tell you a little bit more about where that business is. So it is at the moment the fastest growing health insurer in the Indian market. And we stagger at the amounts, the numbers there. I think we've got more than 30 million clients, who's got health insurance with us. It's also quite strong on wellness. The Indian people are getting more and more aware of also kind of this whole movement towards wellness. And we are we are one of 3 shareholders in that business. Now, always in the long run, when you keep on investing and putting capital into a business to help it grow, you would get the question that says, now, where's this going to end? Are you just going to remain a shareholder, or would you consider somewhere in the future that maybe an IPO is on the cards? And I want to say that, yes, of course, it's always on the cards, but it's not something that we're planning, for the imminent future now. And simply not because at the moment, with the opportunity to keep on growing at the growth rates that we're able to grow in that market, there is no, there's almost no desire for us to dilute our shareholding in that business. We are a very willing investor to help that business grow and grow, as fast as it is at the moment. So a lot of upside for us in that business. We also like the fact that it's in the Indian market. It is a fast growing market and it's uncorrelated to South Africa. So in a way, it buffers us, from everything that happened to our consumers here. But now the Indian market, very, very thin margins. You've got to run a very, very wonderfully kind of lean business in order to be able, to run a business profitably at those kinds of very, very lean margins that we have there. So a very different business actually to how we run our businesses in South Africa.
Janet Marais, thank you very much for joining us this evening on The Money Show, the Momentum Group CEO, talking about the company's numbers, how they did in India, but also, more importantly, how the South African business is looking up as more consumers look to be covered for those annuity and pensions. When selling a car, there's nothing worse than a long, frustrating process. We Buy Cars knows life's short and time is precious. Sell your car within a day from whenever you find it convenient. Simply complete the online form and We Buy Cars will make it happen. Need a new ride? Explore thousands of vehicles online or in store. We Buy Cars, South Africa's trusted vehicle partner.
Medical care, like music, needs continuity, a steady rhythm and pattern. Patients attended to on time. Medication taken as prescribed. Cut the rhythm, and it falls apart. Right now, global funding cuts are restricting access to healthcare. With your support, Doctors Without Borders can continue to provide medical care to communities worldwide. Because medicine, like music, only works when uninterrupted. Doctors Without Borders, we go there.
Backed by popular demand, legendary jazz icon Kenny G will be performing at the Super Bowl at Sun City on Friday, the 3rd of October. Get ready for an unforgettable night of timeless hits and pure musical magic. Get your tickets from webtickets.co.za. Brought to you by Breakout Events and 702.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud host of the Macro and Risk Management Conference 2025. ABSA is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Welcome back to The Money Show, about 9 minutes to 7. Now let's tackle the Monetary Policy Committee. They've been meeting from earlier in the week and they'll announce the country's latest interest rates on Thursday at around 3 o'clock. That time of the year where we have to find out whether there'll be another cut or whether there'll be another hold from the South African Reserve Bank. We're going to be chatting to Albert Botha, Head of Fixed Income at Ashburton Investment, and Mpho Mlopiane, Chief Economist at Alex Forbes Investment. Welcome to The Money Show.
Thank you. Good evening.
So let's create a little bit of an MPC here on The Money Show between you two. The last number in terms of the repo rate was 7%. Do you see the vote going for a cut or hold this time around? We'll get into the aspects after you answer that.
So I think that before today, there was probably a relatively broad split between economists on whether there'd be a cut or a hold. I think after the surprise in South African inflation today, where it surprised to the downside relatively meaningfully, I think there's going to be more of a tilt towards a cut camp. I specifically actually think we will be seeing a cut from the MPC tomorrow from 7% to 6.75%.
Those headline inflation forecasts that we had earlier in the week, just how much of a big role are they going to be playing in terms of a decision tomorrow? We know that there's a new sort of target around 3%, the bottom of the 3%, that the SARB is looking at. Is that going to play a major role in terms of the expected headline inflation going forward?
It's certainly a factor. I think there's going to be a number of things that play a role. But this downside surprise in inflation is meaningful. This SARB wants to move inflation expectations down to 3% in line with their new preferred target. The other thing that I think is also going to be playing a meaningful role specifically for the SARB is the fact that there's currently an almost 100% probability being priced in of the United States Federal Reserve, the Fed, also cutting in this month. And I think those two factors combined, along with the relatively slow growth in South Africa and the struggling job market, means that we are likely going to be seeing a cut tomorrow.
Paul, let's bring you into this conversation here. A lot to decide on for the MPC. Not likely to be unanimous. At least I don't expect it to be, because there's a lot to think about. But when you look at the Monetary Policy Committee and what they've had to consider in terms of volatility in the market, the US tariffs that we were slapped with last month, looking at the inflation forecast, but also the new regime of that target between 3 to 6%, with the bottom at 3%. What's there to decide for them? Is there room to wiggle for a cut?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not slam dunk. I must admit, we are broadly aligned with consensus in a sense that they keep the repo rate unchanged tomorrow. But, even having said that, as I indicated, it's not slam dunk. I think there are a lot of factors for them to consider. So firstly, the lower inflation target, which they announced at the July meeting, is going to be a major factor for them to take into consideration, because if you think about it, they do have credibility in terms of achieving the previous target of 4.5, but they now have to establish new credibility in terms of achieving inflation at 3%. And if you look at where the current inflation is, currently printed at 3.3, yes, it did surprise to the downside, but it's still higher than the 3% target, which they now looking to target. And in addition to that, if you look at the outlook for inflation, right, even the SARB's own projections at the July meeting were showing that inflation is expected to drift higher in the next coming months. So that's going to challenge, this new inflation target regime that they're trying to achieve, as well as bringing inflation expectations to be anchored at around 3%. So, those are the factors which they are going to navigate. And also, just speaking on inflation expectations, yes, they did come down quite significantly, actually, to around 4.2%. And if you look at the 2-year and 5-year inflation expectations in particular at 4.2, that's the lowest on record, right? But it's still not at 3%. And for the SARB in particular, the difficulty is going to be, or the challenge rather, in the next coming months is that will inflation expectations remain, will they continue to drift lower? Or as inflation ticks higher in the next coming months, will inflation expectations also now begin to tick higher? Because they do tend to be quite mixed. They're not necessarily all anchored. So, those are the factors I think will likely keep the SARB to hold at tomorrow's meeting. But on the other hand, they could say that, monetary policy affects the economy with a 4-quarter lag. That's usually the understanding when we look at econometric models. And they could say that the forecast is for inflation to reach the 3% target in the third quarter of 2026. There's really nothing that monetary policy can do to affect inflation between now and the second quarter of 2026. So, that ball is already out of their hands. And they could say, because they are a forward-looking SARB, then decide to cut the policy rate.
Look, South Africans are in the real economy. They probably appreciate the thinking that goes into setting interest rates, but cost of living still quite high. Even with that inflation number going down for food and non-alcoholic beverages, it still feels like your rand is not stretched enough to get you all that you need to get to the end of the month. Would it be a positive for an interest rate to come now instead of later to try and balance it out for those that are heavily indebted and are repaying some of these higher bonds and car payments?
Yeah, definitely it would be positive, right? So like, for instance, if you just look at someone with a 1 million bond payment, if the SARB does decide to cut by about 25 basis points, I don't think they, do more than that if they do decide to cut. You're likely looking at that putting back around, just 170 Rand back into your pocket. Yes, it does not sound like it's significant, but if you look at the cumulative cuts since they started cutting, right, which has, so far it has been around 125 basis points. So if they do cut tomorrow, it would be around 150 basis points. So, it would be significant in terms of like the cumulative cuts that they have effected so far.
Yeah, if you think about petrol, you think about food, 170 Rand can go a really long way. Thank you to Albert Botha, head of fixed income at Ashburton Investments, and Mpho Molopiane, chief economist at Alex Vorb Investments, giving us what they expect of the Monetary Policy Committee tomorrow as the SARB prepares to give us the latest interest rate number. Most analysts are expecting that the SARB will hold, but that was before that a lower inflation number came through from Stats SA, with some now saying we can expect at least a cut of 25 basis points. Time now is 7 o'clock. Your Eyewitness News up next.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Monki Zikoko. Parliament's Public Works Committee today dismissed attempts to learn the reasons for last year's building collapse in George as a waste of time. MPs were outraged that officials were not prepared to name those who were to blame for the deaths of 34 people, mostly foreign nationals. The Council for the Built Environment said that this is because those involved in the failed construction are legally challenging the forensic findings. CEO Msizi Mnyeza said releasing the report could jeopardize criminal investigations. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
A four-story building that illegally became 5. MPs have heard that workers reported unusual building movements just 2 days before the apartment block caved in. While a qualified engineer was part of the construction team, he has been reported to the Engineering Council at least 5 times. Meanwhile, the health and safety inspector resigned during construction for reasons still unknown. But MPs were fuming that the full forensic report would not be shared with them for legal reasons. The EFF's Sharon Letlape.
People are playing hide and seek, where we'll never be able to get that forensic report because it's going to be one department with another.
The Action SA's Malebo Kobe.
We cannot be hiding under the skirt of investigations are sensitive, whereas there is information that we need to ask.
Committee chairperson Carol Peary said she would request to hold an in-camera meeting with all role players in the room for the full set of circumstances of the collapse to be explained to MPs. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
A state witness in the Phalaphala Beglu trial could find himself in hot water after testifying in court that the alleged robbers paid him 7,000 Rand when records show the amount is closer to R500,000. The witness, who cannot be named, testified in court today that he drove the accused number 1, Emanuela David, and 2 of his friends from Limpopo to Gauteng a day after they robbed the farm. David, along with his siblings, are accused of breaking into President Cyril Ramaphosa's farm and stealing $580,000 in cash. Today was the day 2 of the trial at the Modimolle Regional Court in Limpopo. Tabiso Goba was there.
The driver testified today after driving Emanuela David and his 2 friends to a car dealership in Johannesburg. They paid him 7,000 Rand. However, the state says there are discrepancies between his testimony today in court and the police statement he gave earlier. One, the state's prosecutor, says the car dealership was in Benoni and not Johannesburg. 2, in his statement, the driver says he was paid $30,000 in cash, not 7,000 Rand. Speaking through an interpreter, the driver says he acknowledges there are inconsistencies between his oral and written statements.
I will say that I agree, and on the other hand say that I dispute what you are saying, because when the statement was made, I was afraid.
State Prosecutor Nketheni Munyai has invoked Section 189 of the Criminal Procedure Act, which can potentially see the driver sanctioned either with a fine or imprisonment. Tabiso Koba, Eyewitness News, Limpopo.
The Independent Electoral Commission in KwaZulu-Natal says the Ward 64 by-elections in eThekwini will proceed in spite of commotion between political parties today. Now, the ward is one of the biggest in KZN with over 21,000 registered voters. The recent resignation of a DA councillor left a vacant seat in the council. IC KZN Electoral Officer Ntomifuthi Masinga says voting is now underway at 8 voting stations.
There was a bit of a commotion in Montclair Recreational Hall with the noise in the tables and tents outside of the voting stations that are manned by political parties getting a bit rowdy, but that was managed by the SAPS working hand in hand with the Metro Police, and order has been reinstated.
Masinga has added that law enforcement will be closely monitoring the by-election.
The police are going to be observing the by-election until the end.
And the South African government has reiterated its call for Israel to end its actions against Palestinians in Gaza following a damning report by the United Nations Commission of Inquiry. Yesterday, the commission released a report defining Jerusalem's retaliatory attack in the war that was started by Hamas in 2023 as genocidal under international law. Before this, South Africa had taken Israel to the International Court of Justice for claims that the country is killing Palestinians in Gaza. The International Relations Department says all states now need to fulfill their obligations under the Genocide Convention. International Relations spokesperson Crispin Piri.
It is increasingly clear that the Palestinian people are facing a threat of erasure in real time. The entire system of international law is on the line. At stake is not merely the fate of the Palestinian people, but the very principle of justice over impunity.
Gold is trading at $3,685.48 an ounce. The rand is at 17.36 to the dollar, 23.72 to the pound, 20.57 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $68.26 a barrel.
Deep Sloot, we're still dealing with that accident scene where a pedestrian was knocked down, and this is on the N14 westbound near the R511 Winnie Mandela Drive, still causing about a 30-minute delay. Also in the Roodepoort area heading towards Kagiso, slow-moving traffic on Randfontein Road between Miles Stalker and Adcock Street, while in the Mother City there's slow-moving traffic on the M5 southbound approaching Pinelands.
A fine Thursday in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Johannesburg drops to overnight lows of 10 degrees, peaking at highs of 28. Pretoria is at 9 and 27. Vereeniging 4, also reaching highs of 27. Cape Town is partly cloudy, becoming clear with a gentle southeasterly breeze at a low of 11 and a high of 19. The top story in EWN this hour. Parliament's Public Works Committee today dismissed attempts to learn the reasons for last year's building collapse in George as a waste of time.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show with Motheo Khwaripe
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud host of the Macro and Risk Management Conference 2025. ABSA is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply. Now, something quite strange is happening, and something more confusing, I guess, for universities is also happening. Artificial intelligence is worming its way through into the country's academics. Is using generative AI cheating? A few weeks ago, UCT said no, it isn't. They announced that they would no longer require students to confirm they hadn't used AI in completing assignments. We have futurist researcher Graham Codrington on the line in Business Unusual tonight. A very funny time to meander then for universities in the country looking at how artificial intelligence works. We'll have that conversation in a moment.
The Money Show.
Business Unusual.
Business Unusual is brought to you by Business Outsurance. Visit outsurance.co.za to switch and save today. Tonight, talking artificial intelligence and how it's affecting academics, how universities are also meandering the space, because a lot of young people, of course, and now those that are going to varsities using this particular technology openly. Graham Codrington joining us on the line for Business Unusual. Looking back at how we were educated, Graham, I don't know how far your years go back, but technologies like these would have helped me a great deal.
Good evening, Motheo. And I agree with you. I think this is a very interesting conversation, not just for universities, but also for any business that includes both professionals and people who are using their brain power, so-called knowledge workers. It's coming up to nearly 3 years anniversary since generative AI was introduced. And I actually think it's quite impressive that UCT is one of the first universities in the world to just say, you know what, if you're going to use generative AI, use it. But your question is quite right. I think I'm a bit older than you, Matteo, and anybody who's older than 50, maybe I can help you to not be that grumpy old person looking at today's young people strangely, because those of us who went to school in the 1980s, we will remember the introduction of calculators for the matric maths exam. And I was matriculated in 1988, and I remember that my grandfather, who was an inspector of education, thought that it was going to be the end of the world. He was one of those guys who could do amazing mental mathematics, and he thought that our generation of young people in the 1980s and 90s having calculators would mean that we wouldn't understand the basics of trigonometry and calculus, that we wouldn't know how to even do 2 + 2 in our heads. And maybe he was right. We've all got calculators on our computers, and I know that these days I check whether the tip I've added is correctly added up on the restaurant bill before I put the total. I check it on the calculator, not in my head. But what actually happened, Matteo, over the years is not what my grandfather was expecting. Instead of us dumbing everybody down, what's actually happened in the last 30 years or so is we've raised the base. So now the mathematics that young people are learning in matric today is probably similar to what my generation was learning in first year varsity. So calculators allowed us to not dumb down the clever kids, but actually raise the base of everybody else. And that meant we could teach higher level maths, and it did mean that the teachers had to change. And maybe that's the point of my story this evening, is that when you know that your students have access to a piece of technology that can give them some of the answers, you do have to change the questions, and you have to change the way that you question them. And I think that's what UCT are challenging their lecturers to do.
Yeah.
And I think there will be a ripple into the professional world as well.
I mean, I remember exams where you were handed another extra piece of paper to try and work out the sums. Then we got to, maths higher grade, and then you were handed the calculator. Couldn't believe your life, but maths was still tough, even with the calculator in hand. Now, looking at, how education would be shaped going forward using generative AI, I think, is it a matter of people not understanding the technology and maybe trying to fend off something they don't understand instead of just welcoming it in terms of enhancing education going forward?
That's a great question, Matteo, and this is really why I thought this topic might be interesting for the Business Unusual slot this week, because contrast to UCT, just last week, I was with one of the big consulting companies, working with them and talking to them about AI. And they've got great AI tools that they've developed, and they're looking at agentic AI and all these good things into the future. But the one big question that didn't seem to have an answer was, how do we train the junior staff? Again, apologies, this is supposed to be a future-focused segment. I'm going into history this evening. But after school and studies, I went to KPMG, and I did articles at KPMG. And those first 2 years of articles, to be honest, for a guy who had a BCom and was kind of pretty smart, it really didn't feel like I was stretching myself, doing creditors recons and bank recons and stock counts and so on. But the point of those first 2 or 3 years in your profession, whether it's accounting or auditing or legal or engineering, the point of it is you learn the basics of your profession. You learn those building blocks that then help you to become that top quality professional later in your career. Now, what if we don't ever need a human being to do those basics? Because that's what these big consulting companies and legal and engineering and auditing companies are doing. They're saying whatever a first-year clerk or a second-year clerk used to do, we can get the machine to do that. And I think that's right. But here's where I think we've got to have a conversation. is if you don't have the basic building blocks, if you've let a machine do your thinking for you, and then you hit something which is unusual or different or requires an application of skills, you might not have enough basic building blocks to be able to come up with a new idea. So that's a long way around to answer your excellent question, but I think we've got to still find a balance. Find a balance of using the new technology and tools that are available, but also realizing we can't outsource proper professional thinking to machines. And I'm not quite sure we know where the balance is between those two things at the moment.
I understand the scrapping of AI detectors, but I would be swayed to at least have university students show maybe their prompts, how they got to that idea, the brainstorming of the particular assignments that they need to complete as part of the attachments to the assignment, just to see how the AI is being used. I think it will be also a great help to see how, from a lecturer's point of view, how the students are still using the AI to think for themselves.
Yeah, and one final story from history. So when I was doing tax at WITS in the 1990s, we convinced our lecturers to make it an open book exam. And just like you experienced, Mateo, when you were handed the calculator, at first you think, oh, wow, this is amazing. I've got access to the Tax Act while I'm sitting in the exam. What you didn't realize is that your teachers were ahead of you. They raised the game, making the assignments and the questions harder. Because if you've got access to the underlying data or the underlying knowledge, the real question is, can you apply it? And that's, I think, the secret here, Mateo, is that in the university, we've got to change the questions we ask. We can't ask somebody to do a book summary anymore. We can't ask somebody to give us the 3 reasons that the Second World War started, because they can just ask ChatGPT to give them that answer. Now we need application. And that's what I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see better questions requiring deeper insight that can't be replicated by the machine. And in the professional world, I'm excited not to see the power of ChatGPT to replace anybody in businesses, but rather to augment their skills. For me, the best use of generative AI is to take somebody who is already good at what they do and give them a little bit of an extra edge. To go back to what I said about the calculator, we're not trying to dumb down the clever people. We're trying to raise the base for everybody so that everybody can be clever, and the really clever people can be even cleverer when they use technology in addition to their own brain. So for me, it's both and, rather either or.
Well, that is our Business Unusual with Graham Cordrington, futurist and partner at Tomorrow Today, talking to us there about the use of generative AI. UCT saying it's not going to, have students tell them that they use AI for assignments. It's scrapped that particular thing, and it's going to be brave enough to let them use AI and also some of their thinking in their assignments in the professional setup. Very interesting to see how that will work. Now, what new cost-cutting business strategies would you need for a 20% saving on your operating expenses? Only one. Switch to Outsurance Business and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. For medical specialities like dental, psychotherapy, physiotherapy, surgical and other industries, Outsurance Business are trusted experts in business insurance. Get a quote today. It's easy. Call 08600 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
There's so much news to take in.
By the end of the day, you just want it all to make sense.
That's why you listen to John Perlman on your drive home.
You may not always get the answers you want,
but you're guaranteed better questions
and all sides of the story.
Every show is an attempt to tie up any loose ends
and give you a better view of where things stand before you get home.
John Perlman is on 702.
Monday to Friday,
3 to 6 p.m.
Let's walk the talk.
This is Jade. She'll spend hours comparing almond milk and once made a spreadsheet just for sneakers. But when she found Santam, SA's leading short-term insurer that offers a range of cover options, from vehicle to building and home contents, even she didn't overthink it. The kind of freedom Santam gives you takes some getting used to. Speak to your broker. Santam, this is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Medical care, like music, needs continuity, a steady rhythm and pattern. Patients attended to on time, medication taken as prescribed. Cut the rhythm, and it falls apart. Right now, global funding cuts are restricting access to healthcare. With your support, Doctors Without Borders can continue to provide medical care to communities worldwide. Because medicine, like music, only works when uninterrupted. Doctors Without Borders. We go there.
Spring is sprung. The grass is res. It's now time to get stuck into your garden. So get to Chamberlain Gardening Centres for our spring promotion from 4 August to 12 October. Get ceiling trays at R29.90 or Colterra compost at R24.90. And don't miss a chance to win your share of R90,000 in gift vouchers every Saturday during the promotion. Chamberlain, famous for hardware and gardening since 1903.
The Money Show.
Consumer Ninja.
Around this time every Wednesday on The Money Show, we cover your consumer rights with our consumer ninja, Wendy Nola, joining us to talk about this week's rights that you should definitely know. If you are a road user and you use your car or looking to buy a new one, you should be listening to us. We're talking about on-the-road fees. Now, it seems car buyers are stuck with dealerships and their car finance partners, adding the controversial on-the-road fee to contracts. But thanks to a Supreme Court of Appeal ruling, at least they are now forced to be a lot more transparent. And Wendy Nola will tell us more about that. The on-the-road fee, a controversial one. It's for cleaning, registration, and all sorts of things when you buy your car. Can you explain how it works?
Yeah, so technically the National Credit Act allows the dealerships to add the, licensing and registration and a tank of petrol, and I forget the other thing. But what has been happening for many years is that the dealers then add on a fee. Some call it on the road fee, some call it a dealership fee, where it's normally just lumped on one big lump sum, and it's not broken down unless the savvy consumer says, what is it? And then there's a bit of thumbsuck that goes on, right? They'll say it's for doing the checks, the pre-sale checks, it's for the valet, it's for the, we've got to prepare the car, sort the sound system out, all of these things. But in most other industries, that's all built into the selling price, right? And so there's a transparency around the price, whereas the feeling by the National Credit Regulator, who's been trying to use the courts to stop this practice, to stop the banks, the car finances, from financing deals that have this on the road fee in it. And long story short, they lost, and so they took an appeal to the ultimate apex court, the Supreme Court of Appeal, which last week, it's a complicated ruling, and it involved 3 separate rulings that were all considered in this one case, because the NCR, the regulator, was using the financial services arms of the 3 big German marques, VW, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz, as sort of test cases, really. And so it went before the SCA, and in short, the SCA said, well, they can charge this fee, the dealerships and their financing banks, but they have to be transparent about it. So it can't just somehow be this fee that's dropped in there without any explanation. They have to break it down, which is quite delicious. Yes. I mean, I even had one dealership tell me years ago that, I said, oh, break it down. I mean, this is years ago before it was really in the public eye, thanks to the regulator. I remember the one did this 20-point breakdown and included a percentage of the valet worker's salary and no, it was interesting. And
sometimes
of course,
you wonder what's that got to do with me.
Yeah, and of course also people feel so have warm fuzzies when they get the champagne and the flowers.
It's
and
an emotional decision.
And the social photo ready thing. And they're paying for that in the fee. But anyway, so now it has to be broken down. And I think that it's a consolation prize. But I mean, I'm going to be very interested to see those first deals coming through with with that breakdown there, and whether they're going to all work to a template or all do their own thing, or how they're going to manage that.
I think there are thousands of motorists in the country who didn't know they were paying for the ribbon and the photo opportunity and the drink that comes with the new
Of course
wheels.
they are. It's
You
all
just
built
think
into
they're
that
being
fee.
nice to you because you
I
just bought a
know.
car.
I know, shame. But yeah, I think also the thing is, Mateo, if it's broken down, this is an opportunity when you know what you're being charged. Now you have an opportunity, and what consumers must really know is to negotiate around that. I mean, it's boom time for the dealers now. They're selling loads. The numbers are really high, but it's not going to necessarily stay that way. So I would say, push back on some of those fees. At least get that fee reduced. Don't let them tell you it's compulsory. There's no legal requirement for them to do it. So yeah, I would say push back, drive a hard bargain
So
around
this
those
is a little bit of a win then.
It is. I think anything that forces service providers to be more transparent is always a win.
Because you can just opt out of the ribbon. I don't want it. So what then?
Yes, keep your ribbon. That's the thing. That's interesting. Yeah, keep the ribbon. I mean, I've been writing about this for such a long time. It was quite a long time ago. I bought my last new car, and when I went to collect it, there was like barely enough petrol in the tank for me to get to the nearest fuel station, and I was fine with that because part of it is the tank, is the fuel, but that is allowed for in the Act. Ironically, it's all the other things. I mean, why must I pay for you to check the car? You should be selling me a car in good condition. And here's the other thing: so many complaints that I get of for cars, newly bought cars, whether they were new or used when they were bought, going horribly wrong straight away. But these people have been charged
already
3,000 rand for doing checks, mind you. Like, what checks? I mean, I would say, like, you can refund me that what I now if it's itemized, you say, okay, there's like 40-point check, right? Okay, I'll have that fee.
It
That
also
part of the
works in your
feedback, thank
favor
you.
if there's something wrong with the car to say you guys said you did a check,
Yeah,
so you can't
and you
tell me.
charged me for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of interesting split was there with the Supreme Court of Appeal in terms of this particular decision? I know you say it was complicated, but were any of the judges, swayed to maybe say there shouldn't be any charge at all?
No, this was a unanimous judgment. But earlier, when the case was still going through, there was a High Court judgment, and there was one dissenting judge, Judge Graham Moshana. He disagreed. He said, for dealerships to add fees for a valet service, for example, knowing that the financer was going to add interest to that amount over the term of the contract, 72 months, was, and this is how he put it, the mischief that the legislature seeks to curb by introducing a closed list in terms of Section 102. In other words, you can charge for the petrol, you can charge for the licensing and licensing and registration, and also the fee to spare you going to stand in the queue. They can charge you that fee. And that dissenting judge was saying, leave it to that. Don't be adding all other things. But he was outnumbered, and so that's why this has landed up all the way in the Supreme Court. And yes, they can still charge, but now they have to be.
But contracts these days also go beyond 72 months. There's all sorts of interesting deals with.
Yes, good pickup there, because we now have contracts as long as 8 years, 96 months, which is terrifying. Look, most South
Hopefully
Africans.
this is just luxury cars, not like.
No, all sorts of cars, not just
8
high-end cars.
years.
Yeah. And look, most people wouldn't ride out the 8 years. They would sell the car before that 8 years is up. But it's a very long time to commit. And how it happens is we are becoming less and less able to afford cars, right? They're getting more expensive, and our income is not expanding or increasing at the same rate. And so that's why you've got all these things happening where you're extending the term. You've got balloons, and now you've got MFC, which is Nedbank, doing the step payment. So you start off paying 6.5 a month, but next year you're paying 7 something, and for the last few years of that 8 years, you're going to be paying 8.5.
It's ballooned up, yeah.
It's crazy. So yeah, I think all in all, not the win that the regulator wanted, but at least a consolation prize of, you don't just slap on the number there and leave it. You got to break it down
And just last off, what's the sage advice? I mean, do you take away all the emotions when you buy your car? I mean, it's a shame for those that are buying their car for the first time because, I mean, it's a good feeling.
It is a good feeling, but it's and everything's moving towards digital age, do everything fast. No, I say buy a car slowly. You're entitled to a quote in terms of the act, and you've got there's 5 days, 5 business days. I think it's a week, or 5 days anyway, at least 5 days in which to they must hold that quote and honor that quote. But you get advice. Send it to me. Speak to your parents, your cousin that's in the business, or
Take your time.
Take your time and interrogate everything. What people do is they say, I can afford 4,000 a month or whatever the figure is, and they don't look behind how that F&I and the dealership has got them there, and they really need to do that. And I'm always open invitation. Anybody wants me to look at a quote, I'd happily do it. So you get the advice up front rather than later on when it's too late to fix.
Well, you heard the offer. Consumer Ninja Wendy Nola talking to us there about the on-the-road fees. Be careful when you purchase your next set of wheels.
The Aubrey Masango Show on 702. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
Let's walk the talk.
That Aubrey Masango Show coming up after 8 p.m. Aubrey is here to tell us what's on the menu tonight. It is Wills Week. I heard you having a bit of a chit-chatter there about wills. We all need to get our lives together, right?
Absolutely, man. And indeed, good evening to you, Matteo. Indeed, it is Wills Week this week, and I'm going to be speaking to Angelique Krugel, Director at Wealth and Legacy Group, and we're going to be talking about some of the issues that need to be discussed in as far as wills are concerned. 70% of estates registered involves individuals who are passed away, and this is according to the Chief Master's Office. And really, the wills conversation needs to be had and had quite honestly. Professor Marlena Ellsberg joins me in the second hour of the show. We talk about the Pilanesberg and how the Pilanesberg, which looks like a simple plain, is an ancient volcanic space.
Wow.
And we're going to be talking to her about that in the Weird and the Wonderful. Stanley Beckett joins me in the third hour to talk about, you probably heard people say that you are generally the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And the conversation there is, who are the people that you're spending time with in terms of your financial education? And then the final hour is an open line as always. That's the Aubrey Masango Show.
Lots of great content to expect after 8 p.m. from Aubrey Masango. You can join him after the news headlines. But now it's 7:31. Let's go to the news headlines with Mongezu Gogo.
Thanks, Mateo. Good evening. KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has revealed how the Provincial Political Killings Task Team was roped in to assist with investigations in Gauteng. He was testifying on day 1 of public hearings in the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria. Mkhwanazi says the call for assistance for the Political Killings Task Team to help Gauteng's organised crime unit came from intelligence head Dumisani Khumalo. Oren Singh reports.
The KZN Political Killings Task Team were requested to assist Gauteng organised crime in the investigations into the assassination of Vereniging engineer Armand Swart. Mkhwanazi alleges that the Gauteng detectives, as well as prosecution team assigned to the case, began receiving threats following the arrest of 3 people for Swart's murder. Reading from a letter sent to him by the senior public prosecutor, Mkhwanazi details how much the accused were paid for the hit.
The investigation has proven that all 3 accused are involved in a serious organized crime syndicate, of which almost R1 million was offered for the assassination in this regard.
Mkhwanazi says a team from outside the province, the Political Killings Task Team, were requested to investigate the matter. Arun Singh, Eyewitness News, Pretoria.
The South African National Defence Force has confirmed the arrest of 5 of its members linked to an unauthorized interception of an alleged group of smugglers in Limpopo. The SANDF says the group allegedly conducted an operation in Arton Villa with 2 undocumented Zimbabwean nationals last night. According to preliminary reports, 2 shots were fired and the illicit goods were seized and unlawfully concealed at the base. National Defence spokesperson Prince Chabalala says they will be in full cooperation with the SAPS and SARS in addressing the issue.
The SNDF views this allegation in a very serious light. Such conduct undermines the integrity of the Defence Force and the trust placed on its members by the Republic of South Africa. The South African National Defence Force reiterates once again that its zero-tolerance stance on corruption, smuggling and misconduct within its ranks.
While frustrated residents west of Joburg have been promised full restoration of water access by tomorrow, the city's water utility says its main systems remain heavily constrained. Now, the areas most affected by the strain include Westbury, Coronationville and Westdean, among others. Last Thursday, Mayor Dada Morero promised residents that taps would be flowing again in 7 days after months of interruptions. Jabuli Limbata has more.
Joburg Water says reservoirs supplied by its main water system are still either critically low or rising slowly. This comes after the utility closed off supply in other areas to build up the levels. However, residents say the intervention is futile. Westbury resident Bianca Oliver says the water tankers deployed to the area are not enough.
They are still sending I think we saw one water truck now. Joburg Water did have a meeting with the councillor concerning affected areas.
Morero will appear before Parliament on Friday to explain his plans for the city's water crisis. Jabuli Limbata, Eyewitness News.
And vote counting is underway in Malawi following the country's general elections. Observers say preliminary results from yesterday's vote indicate a strong showing for former President Peter Mutharika. Current President Lazarus Chikwera is seeking a second term, but his predecessor is not backing down. Approximately 3.7 million votes were cast yesterday, despite some delays at polling stations due to issues with fingerprint readers. According to early election figures from the Election Authority, more than 64% of 7.2 million voters cast a ballot. A fine Thursday in store for Gauteng tomorrow. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows of between 4 and 10 degrees and peak at highs of between 27 and 28. Cape Town is partly cloudy, becoming clear with a gentle southeasterly breeze at a low of 11 and a high of 19. The top story in EWN, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has revealed how the Provincial Political Killings Task Team was roped in to assist with investigations in Gauteng.
Beyond the roads they built, beyond the maps they drew, lies a place only the bold will know, where mountains rise like giants and rivers test your will. With a 2.4-litre turbo diesel and off-road capability, the GWM tank was born for this. Venture further in the Tank 300 from only $7,999 per month. Visit gwm.co.za for T's and C's and to book a test drive. GWM, go with more. Brought to you by GWM Finance, a division of Westbank and authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
One festival, endless flavor, and 2 unforgettable days of timeless music. The DSTV Delicious International Food and Music Festival, powered by Lotto Star, returns on 20 and 21 September at Kyalami Grand Prix Circuit. On Saturday, the stage erupts with Don Toliver, Questa, and Nkabi Zezwe. Then on Sunday, experience the legendary Lauryn Hill, Wyclef Jean, Lyra, and more. The DSTV Delicious Festival, powered by Lotto Star. Tickets at Ticketmaster.
It is said that listening to Mozart could boost intelligence. So we at RMB bought this extended radio spot to give you 30 seconds of Mozart just to get some thinking done. That was nice, huh? Just some time to think. Well, that is precisely what we do at RMB. Invest in the time to think of smarter solutions for our clients. RMB. Solutionists love company. RMB is a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSB and registered credit provider.
The Money Show will give you all the tools you need to navigate the complicated world of economics and commerce, even if you're not a numbers person. The Money Show
with Moteo Khwaripe,
6 to 8 p.m. Making money makes sense
on 702 and Cape Talk.
About 21 minutes to 8 o'clock. It's time for our Shapeshifter feature, which we regularly have on a Wednesday here on The Money Show. This is where we interview business figures who have successfully adapted and transformed their businesses or careers in the face of changing market conditions and those challenges that we go through in life. Tonight, lights, camera, action. The man we're about to talk to speaks to what is happening here in studio. About two lenses facing him and me, and a lot of lights and a whole studio setup that we have here on The Money Show. Aubrey Tau, the force behind More Jalav and Tau Foods. He works on the food side of things, and he also does TV, which are two different worlds, and we'll be asking him how he's connected the two. Aubrey, welcome to The Money Show. Rao Amohela, how are you?
I'm fine. MT, are you good?
I'm good. First thing I want to know, did you always want to be in the lights, in the flashing lights of TV and cameras?
Not really. I wanted just to contribute something to the community.
And it blew up.
Yeah, it just blew up. You know, when it started at school. And when I was at maybe in
were you one of the popular guys?
Yeah, not really. I'm not interested in popularity. I'm interested in creating jobs.
Yeah,
making money, because you have to make money to be able to create jobs. Nothing wrong with that. So I remember when I was at school, I used to sell sweets. It was unbelievable. We can go to a hotel and they'll say, this is shocking. Even teachers from the primary to the high school, and the guys will start, there will be a soccer event. I'll just go to town to buy sweets and come to the stadium and sell sweets just to make money. And also I had some of my colleagues to sell on my behalf, peanuts, those type of things. That's how I think entrepreneur learn from when you are young. Yeah, you don't just become an entrepreneur when you are at 40s, 30s, 40s. It's very difficult. You need to go through the struggle.
Let's talk about those formative years growing up. Where are you from?
I'm from Carltonville in Wetela, and then is a mine town. Yeah, and look, the mining industry, they did well for that town. So my father used to work at the mine. So I used to assist my father going to the golf course to carry for those white boys.
Were you a caddy?
Yeah, I was caddy. And then it was surprising. Every those white boys who played golf, they used to like me a lot because I used to talk. I said, but boss, you're hitting this thing wrong.
Did you also play a great game?
No,
yourself?
I didn't play it.
But you experienced enough.
Yeah, I will carry the bag for them and then earn money. And after earning, I'll go and buy food for my family.
That was a lot of responsibility.
It was. And then
man.
I enjoy it, Yeah, I enjoyed it. I never complained. It was amazing, That's why maybe I'm the favorite in my family.
Do you play golf these days?
No, not at all.
Too much. It's too busy.
No. Look, it's good for those guys who play golf. I like soccer. I like watching soccer as well. I used to play soccer. We had the coach at James Mapena. He was a superstar from Swallows, James Mapena. We used to I was one of those lucky players who was selected by James Mapena to be in his team. But sometimes I'll be in the bench because I was not that
I think the bug
than the others
was the businesses that you had distracting you from your football career.
It's true. And then from there, from school, and I opened, it was very funny because in Carltonville, Kutsong as well. Kutsong is the biggest township well-known, Merafing. So they call it Merafing now. Merafing, never had anything in those days. Youth, they were bored, and then I organized the youth club so that we can talk about, it's very important that those things are giving you direction at youth clubs, and then you talk about what you want to be in future. So, and then after organizing those youth club in Marafi and also Wetela, and then I started arranging a beauty contest, Miss Marafi. And some of the ladies did win Miss Kaiser Chiefs. They work with Bojesik and them at Miss Kaiser Chiefs. So and I used to make a lot of money. Still at school, used to make a lot of money. And then, but I'll be able to use that money developing those people in the youth club. That's who I am.
So you're very
Yeah.
pivotal then in community activities.
Yes,
trying to
a
make
lot.
sure-
Yeah.
Yes, they were commercial at times because you're making money from these ventures, maybe tickets at the door, but
Yeah.
just making sure the youth around you in a mining town have some form of activity. What ambitions did you have, as you were about to leave school? In
Yeah,
Gauteng?
and look, I came to Joburg. When I came to Joburg with a train, every day I used to come with the train coming back, and I met Jomo Sono. I met, that guy gave me an opportunity to open. He opened my mind. That guy. I used to travel with Jomo around to the business, and he'd say, "Aubrey, stay outside."
Is this Jomo the head of Cosmos now?
Yeah, the
or
head of
Jomo at
Cosmos.
Pirates?
Yeah,
Okay.
and he just loved me, So because I used to, I was talkative guy, and then I will come up with ideas. So and that's how I met Jomo, and then he liked some of my ideas. So and they said, no, you are going to work for me because you'll need money as a salary, so that you can be able to be here in Joburg and be able to afford pay rent, and that's how I worked for Jomo as a messenger. And then he will go with me around Jomo, where I will deliver things for him, for Jomo Cosmos as well. And from there, Jomo had this travel agency with a boxing promoter as well. Those days he was popular, that guy. And they owned that travel agency. And those white ladies, they said, no, Aubrey must come and work for us as a messenger. We like Aubrey. So and then I left Jomo Cosmos, worked for that company, which Jomo also owned it. And then I said to those white ladies, look, when people come here, you must make coffee for me. I'll be bringing people to make coffee for me. Like, I have to have an office because perception is also,
Quite
when
important.
you bring,
Yeah.
important.
If you're gonna bring clients, then
I'll bring
yeah.
clients. And then they said, no problem, Aubrey, what is your vision? I said, I want to grow as a businessman. And then after that, I brought in but I was also a messenger for them as well. They used to go around where I will deliver tickets for their clients. And then those lovely ladies, I wish I could meet them, So very nice people. So, and then one day I went to, because at that time there were a lot of international teams coming to South Africa. And I had Obritao Promotions, and then I rode to Sporting Lisbon, to bring Sporting Lisbon to South
Portuguese
Africa.
club.
Yeah, Portuguese club. I went to meet the chairman of Sporting Lisbon in South Africa. That's why I met Pio Noguera, who introduced me to Ivan Khosa. And then because Pio was very close as a Brazilian.
Are you
with the
believing your life at this point in time? Because you're a young man. You
yes,
started working and things are happening.
No, yes, I was taking myself seriously.
These are giants you're talking about.
Yes, and then I was taking myself seriously as well.
Yeah.
That's so important, that you have to have a vision, and then you must be able to follow that vision.
And what are those
It's very
lessons?
difficult. So, look, it was so difficult. And then people will say, this young guy, what. But what I've learned is that mostly of these white guys, they don't undermine a person who's young. It's not like our black brothers. Black brothers, we're lucky to have people like Jomo, including Ivan. I will tell you the story about Dr. Ivan, which was so interesting. And then from there, the Sporting Lisbon agreed to come to South Africa. And then that is where I end up at Swallows as well. So I took that letter of Sporting Lisbon, where they said, we give the rights to come to South Africa to this gentleman, because they asked about me from those Portuguese organization, which I met Pio Noguera. And then from there, I went to a company called Novo Mundo. Novo Mundo is still one of the biggest travel agency in South Africa for the Portuguese community. I went to that owner and then I convinced the owner to put a lot of money. He loved Sporting Lisbon. He loved Sporting Lisbon. Likely he was also, he loved Pio Nogueira as well. Pio was a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he liked Pio. And then, unfortunately, the guy loved it. He could not believe it. And that guy said, look, I'm going to give them first-class tickets because they demanded first-class tickets. They demanded...
this is my team.
Yeah.
I'm going to support the
Yeah,
initiative.
my team.
So were you organizing games for them?
Yeah,
as
I
they
was
come
organizing
for
that game.
South Africa? Okay.
And then, because also, you must understand, it was a big game. It wasn't like where I used to organize events at school. You know, at school, I brought Stimela. I brought big artists at school where I made a lot of money as well. So when this guy said, look, Aubrey, you're still young. We are going to get a guy called, that's foolish guy. So I'm sorry to say that, Giacomo, called Giacomo. Giacomo was a foolish man, but a top boxing promoter. When you met Giacomo, I mean, that's where I learned that you need to have contracts. You must sign contracts.
So you can't have gentleman agreements.
Yeah, and then we can have gentleman agreement. Giacomo took over the project. And then I brought in Swallows. That is where I met Chabedi. Mr. Chabedi, very nice guy as well. They said, I went with Pio Nogueira. They said, look, there's an opportunity. Before we went to Chabedi, we went to Dr. Ivan. Dr. Ivan could not believe that Sporting is coming. He said to me, look, in 3 weeks, 4 weeks time, we will have AC Milan coming to play Orlando Pirates. And then unfortunately, I wanted Pirates to play against this big Portuguese team.
Yeah.
It's so huge. And then you must remember there are a lot of Portuguese during that time as well. A lot of Portuguese community. Huge Portuguese community. And then we're expecting them to fill up the stadium, paying a lot of money for the tickets. So, and then, and he was so supportive, Dr. Evan. He said, look, if you come up with other ideas, my office will be always open. Which was also humbling, you know. And then after that, we went to Chabedi. He called in Chabedi. He said, Swallows is a big team. Why don't you go and talk to Swallows? Because they are not going to play any team. And then Chiefs, they were going to be playing Manchester United, those type of top teams. And then I went to Swallows to see Chabedi. And then I convinced Chabedi. From there, Giacomo just took over. Suddenly, he left me behind. Meetings.
But the team traveled, the games happened.
Yeah, the games happening. Now Aubrey is poor behind there, those type of things. And
How
then
tough was that lesson for you?
No, it was a big lesson that,
yeah.
e.g., when I went to Rodney Payment, again, Rodney. When I went to Rodney, I'll tell you the story about Rodney. He's the one who respects Aubrey as well, a lot, Rodney Payment as well. So after that project, I didn't make money. Giacomo, as a crook, he made money, and then he messed up even the tournament. So, and after that, those ladies, they allowed me to use their office at night. They trusted me. I mean, if it was another guy, you could come and steal their things, what. No, they trusted me. And then that is where now I started going late at the office around 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, talking to the Americans. And then I approached Morris agents. I said, look, I want to bring Whitney Houston. What do you want, guys? They gave me all the terms. But what happened is that they phoned somebody in South Africa. Who's this person? What? And then it was a little bit confused that they agreed. They said, if you can meet these 5 conditions, we are in. I took that letter. I went to Rodney Payment. When I went to Rodney Payment called his son. He said, this is interesting. This is unbelievable. So Rodney said, let me take over. He was a top boxing promoter. And then Rodney Payment brought in Rolling Stone, those type of things. And then he made a lot of money. So Rodney said, look, Tau, I'm going to take this project over. What do you want? That was the first time a top guy said, what do you want?
The opportunity.
Yeah, that's always that's what I always ask my team. Whether you're an employee, you come with something, I always ask, what do you want? What is in for you? You know, so that you cannot play around with the person. So, and then I said, Rodney, it's up to you because I don't have money. Rodney said, look, I'm going to give you 100K, those type of things. And then it was 22 years back. I mean, I was in my late 20s.
That was your great entrepreneurial journey. So how do we jump then to the launch of Moja Love? I know there was CITV before that.
MT, before,
You still needed to get the licensing. I'm just going ahead because I'm looking at the time. Just getting that commercial license to have a network like Moja Love. How was that journey for you?
Look, the journey took, in what I've learned all over these years, including in mining. I know that time is running as empty. In mining, I got in mining with a guy called Jonathan Segal. The Jewish funded me with a lot of money for African soccer. Moja Love is not the first project which I did. There was a big company called Moja Love, African Soccer, and also CAF Awards. I went with an idea to CAF, presented to the executive. They gave me exclusivity, and I appointed Jessica Mtaung to run the project. She ran it very well for the past 3 years. We made a lot of money. She made a lot of money as well. So and Moja Love came at the last mile of the TV one. So, and then from there, I invested that money into a mining coal company in Brits, Platcro. We sold that company for 20 million rand to Jubilee. Jubilee is still listed in JSE, still making a lot of money, and they're making a lot of money from that chrome project. And then it was 20 years back. So, and after that, we've invested that money, where now we also bid for the chrome dams from Patrice Motsepe mine. We did win of those Patrice Motsepe mine. We had Glencore coming in, investing 700 million, agreed. But the market, it was all over the world, the market fell. And then that project just died. It was so bad.
So why did you pivot then to the creative industry?
Because I had also, because I did like I'm an entrepreneur. I was lucky. So I saw the opportunity that there's, in South Africa, a lot of people, they don't know a lot about African football. That is why I created African soccer. And from there, I went to create CAF Awards. The CAF Awards, it was sold to a mobile company in Nigeria. From there, I said, I'm not going to anymore. I'm not going to be able to do this smaller project. I want to do a big project. I applied for the push for ICASA for the license. It took years. The frustration there, it was unbelievable.
We'll talk about that just coming up. Aubrey Tau, founder of Moja Love and Tau Foods, in conversation with us as the Shapeshifter.
Remember when everyone thought NFTs were the future of modern art? When non-fungible was a buzzword used in boardrooms to justify buying pixels, and the metaverse was just months away, and that we'll all be living in our virtual mansions, admiring our digital paintings, only to realize they were just expensive JPEGs. When you can't trust a trend, trust a 30-year track record of outperforming benchmarks.
Coronation. Trust is earned. Coronation is an authorized FSP.
1 degree defines you as a master of business, the MBA. The life-changing Gibbs MBA empowers you to lead an organization or start your own business within the dynamic African context. Choose from 90 electives and 8 focus areas: general management, entrepreneurship, consulting, manufacturing, digital, humane leadership, healthcare, and climate leadership. For our next information session, go to gibbs.co.za/MBA. Gibbs is a Triple Crown internationally accredited business school in Ilovo, Sandton.
Back by popular demand, legendary jazz icon Kenny G will be performing at the Super Bowl at Sun City on Friday, the 3rd of October. Get ready for an unforgettable night of timeless hits and pure musical magic. Get your tickets from webtickets.co.za. Brought to you by Breakout Events and 702.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud host of the Macro and Risk Management Conference 2025. ABSA is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
We're in conversation with our shapeshifters tonight, Aubrey Tau, the founder of Moja Love and Tau Foods. You've told us a lot of stories around your entrepreneurial journey and how tough it was to start Moja Love. Somebody who's listening to us now and says, okay, this is a pioneer in terms of business. What would you tell them as Aubrey Tau? Is it just a matter of starting or finding the money?
Look, South Africa is very difficult for entrepreneurs to succeed because the environment doesn't allow them. You know, we have, to be honest, I'm sorry, we have a messed up government. They don't invest in the youth. They're just messed up. So it's so difficult for these young people to be able to start businesses, create jobs. And they back to Moja Love. I mean, I had to, it was so difficult just to get the license. It took us 4 years. Imagine 4 years without doing anything, just running after Igasa. That's so bad, man. You know, I hope the generation which will come in future, they will be able to get things, licenses, regulations, so that they can be able to. Yeah. You know, we just have messed up things. It's just messed up, and then all the politicians, they don't understand it. You know, just look at their clueless. You know, Rupert, he said, you know, a person who started a business in the past 20 years from scratch, not where as a PEE, from scratch and succeed, I'll shake that person because it's very difficult. But apart from that, look, I must be thankful to MultiChoice. We fought battles with MultiChoice. We fought. It was so hard that they didn't even want to see me in their doors. But now they love me. They like to kiss me. Aubrey. They want to kiss me. Yes, for sure.
The viewership
we are bringing the team. We've got a great team. Great talented team. At Moja Lab, we work like a machine. It's like a Barcelona team.
So I'll give you the last word then. What do you say to young people?
Yeah, for young people, I will say, look, don't get discouraged. Yeah, but make sure, because South Africa is tough, make sure that you got funding.
Yeah.
Make sure that you go and knock to those guys who are successful.
Can they come to you for funding?
Definitely, for sure, they can come to me for if they've got great ideas. Yeah. I love great ideas. Definitely, I will put money.
Unfortunately, having run out of time, it definitely, I guess we should have again here on The Money Show, shapeshifter Aubrey Tau, founder of Moja Love and Tau Foods, talking about his entrepreneurial journey and some of the challenges he faced going into business.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, proud host of the Macro and Risk Management Conference 2025. ABSA is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Munki Zikoko. KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi believes the decision taken to disband the Political Killings Task Team is suspicious. Mkhwanazi testified at the Matla